Growing a business is hard, but it does not have to be. Once a week, we take a break from the hustle and bustle in business to talk about innovations and what's new in the C suite. This is the Fractional C-suite Retreat, and I'm Joseph Frost. Pull up a seat at the fire, grab a drink, smoke a cigar, and just join me as we relax, learn, and get inspired. This retreat is sponsored by your CMO, helping organizations grow with better marketing strategy.
Welcome. I'm excited for today's guest. He and I chatted a couple weeks ago, and I've been looking forward to this conversation. Not because he's a world famous pickleball player, but because he's a serial entrepreneur. We share that in common. He also used to be a fractional CMO or CMO for Focus CFO group. And he's no longer the CMO for that organization, but he is one of their area presidents. So today I want to introduce everyone to Michael Stier and welcome him to the show. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you, Joe. I've been looking forward to having this chat with you. It'll be fun.
It'll be great. So I know you deal with a lot of executives in your role as area president, both fractional executives and C-suite executives. What's the one thing you think about right now that might be a topic that C-suite executives should be thinking about that maybe they're not, or should be on top of mind that maybe isn't?
So as you know, I think you know, that our target audience are small and mid-sized business owners. So when I'm thinking C-suite executive in that context, it is typically the founder, owner, president of the business. And it is really interesting to talk to owners who've been this, they could own a business for 5 years, or they can be running for 25 years. And in many cases, especially the ones who are more at the baby boomer age and just below that, they never really got into the business thinking about how they were going to exit the business, or when they were going to exit the business, or under what terms, and what do they want to get out of the exit of the business. And I think that is the biggest challenge that we face, or that owners face coming in, because I have these conversations with them, and I ask these very simple questions about their personal goals, their business goals, what do they want to get out of the business, and a lot of times that's where I get the blank stare, right? And so my biggest encouragement for anyone who ideally the best time to think about how and when and you're an exit business is the day you started.
Yeah.
But if you haven't done that, which is in most cases, the best time to start about that is today, regardless of what your runway. If it's 2 years, 5 years, 18 years, I don't care. The best time to start planning for it is today.
So thinking about today as the best day to start thinking about your exit, whether you did it at the right time or the wrong time, today is the time. Mm-hmm. How is AI impacting exits today? That to me seems like the biggest shift in the marketplace from a exit perspective. What do you think?
Interesting question. When we help businesses get ready and attractive for an eventual exit, let's say it's an external sale. So think about it from the perspective of an external buyer. The financials, which obviously we work on as being CFOs, is actually a small part of it's the starting point for the conversation. Really where the real value comes from, and where the multiple, if it's going to head north, comes from, is all the other intangibles. And where AI really comes into play is the systems and processes that drive the operation and make it more efficient. To the extent that AI can help you increase revenue, decrease operating expense, increase margins, reduce your cost of goods sold, whatever that is, I kind of view that within the full realm of systems and processes that we will take a look at. And over time, I would expect AI will continue to be more and more additive to that equation.
So you don't look at AI as a threat. You look at it as an opportunity to enhance the bottom line, enhance the scalability of the business, maybe even make it a better, more attractive business.
100%. It's a tool. And it's becoming a very powerful tool, right, as things progress. And so, yes, absolutely.
That's a good answer. I'm along the same lines. There's certain businesses that I believe are being definitely impacted by AI as almost a replacement of their business model. And marketing, I look at content creation as just, if that was your business model, it is destroyed. Now, that doesn't mean AI content's any good. but
Right.
everyone else thinks it's good enough that they're not paying as much as they used to for it
Mhm.
because of that. So, um, yeah, I think it's a fascinating time to be in business, whether you're looking to buy or sell or just grow in general. AI is changing the landscape, and I know we have embraced AI at your Sumo. Uh, I realized that in our strategy for growth, it needed to be a core competency. We wanted to develop a team that could deliver AI agents for our internal efficiencies, for our external client work, and without it, we'd be too reliant and dependent upon others for that technology. So we double down and focus this year quite a bit on building that as a core competency. And I think that'll show up in our exit, hopefully, at some point when we're ready. But what do you think about that choice that business have to make? Do they invest in it as a core competency or as kind of an outsourced service solution, or maybe a little bit of a hybrid? What's your take and what are you seeing?
I think it depends on quite frankly, the industry that they're in, the type of business it is. I mean, you and I are both in professional services, right? That's a natural extension for getting better productivity, maybe better results for our clients. And we're doing the same thing on your side. We're also experimenting from a marketing perspective. The use case for AI is pretty clear already, and obviously you're developing it. With us on the financial side, it's becoming clear where it can be useful, right? It's certain types of analyses where, CFO could be productive. They don't have to be building tools or having analysts build spreadsheets for them, but it doesn't challenge the role, the value proposition of CFO. If anything, it just makes it additive and makes them more productive, right? And focusing on the higher value add aspects that they can bring to their clients.
Yeah, I see the professional service provider. Uh, I was thinking of this analogy today, last couple of days. I look at AI as it can be a hip hack that you just kind of put some tools in there that help you throughout the day. Little munchies, little this or that, that it's your chat GPT session that you use now and then. And just that alone is of great value to a professional service provider. Or it can be more like a backpack where it's a whole nother set of tools that maybe you didn't have before and can take you on an adventure that you've not gone on before. It can take you different places because you've got that extra
Right.
hack with you. So it's a little bit
That's
more
an interesting,
exciting.
that's an interesting metaphor, Joe. A fanny pack versus a backpack,
Yeah.
right? And how much you're bringing on the trip. Yep, I agree. I have a client of mine that's basically a retail restaurant butcher shop kind of thing. The place that you would not expect to have AI to have much impact on. And from an operational perspective, it doesn't. But the owners use it basically to drive their own sales and marketing, right? And they're doing content generation and campaigns and outreach, and it's working effectively for them.
Yeah, a lot of times, just doing anything is going to generate some activity. So if you've never done marketing at all before, all of a sudden you have all these tools, you can start posting on a daily or more regular basis on social, on your website, and wherever. And if there was nothing before, now you've got awareness you never had before. That itself is a step in the right direction. If you've been doing a lot of stuff before, just doing more of the wrong stuff doesn't do any good. So scaling, a lot of times I see just people putting more bad content out. That doesn't work. That doesn't help. But if you can fine tune in on what is working, AI can make it work better and scale it. And that's where the magic is. I feel maybe it's a little biased, but that's where the fractional CMO still has a place in this world. We can discern between what's working, what's not working, and make sure you invest the AI in the right places.
Right. And obviously the CFOs would be heavily involved in that conversation about where the investment dollars are going to make sense. What's the expected return on investment? And then keeping track of it. Are we actually getting the return out of it?
Yeah, we're focused on only working on projects for clients that can deliver a $10,000 net, increase in revenue or savings, either way, net impact within 90 days, so that you're creating this really focused high value effort that you can then push AI at. Because if you look longer than 90 days, this thing moves too fast. You're probably working on something that won't be necessarily worked on then. And if it's anything less than 10,000, it's just not going to be worth the energy and the effort. So that seems to be a nice filter for us to help choose which projects internally and externally we work on.
It makes a lot of sense because, I and my CFOs have seen lots of clients and businesses where they throw investment dollars after these, shiny objects, and it goes on for quarters or years before, and maybe nothing ever comes of it, and people get tired of it or bored and move on, and it's just wasted dollars that went out the door.
I saw MIT had a study recently where it said something like 90% of enterprise investments in generative AI are not productive.
Yeah.
That it's been in their mind, waste of money. It just hasn't produced any results or net tangible benefits. I don't know if that's an accurate statement, but that was the study. That's what the results came in at.
And I can see that, because it was, for at least for large public companies, which I think is what they looked at.
Yeah.
Right. AI is in the news all the time. Their boards hearing it, their CEOs hearing it from the board, and then they're going out to the people going, "What's our AI strategy? What are we doing?" Right?
Let's just buy something.
Yeah, let's just do it because I have to report back to the board. In the let's say the more lower middle market private space that we play in right now, substitute AI out for almost anything, right? Business owners don't necessarily have the discipline for capital allocation, right? Yeah. It's more of chase the next shiny object or something that feels sexy at the time, or their CPA said, in order to reduce your taxes, you really need to go spend on something, right? And they go buy a new car or whatever hell it is, even though there's no real business case for it. And it's just wasted capital, that could have been deployed more productively.
Yeah, that's where having access to a fractional CFO or full-time CFO really can help out a small business owner, and giving that little bit of discipline, maybe accountability, those friendly nudges, like, "Are you sure you want to buy that? Oh, I mean, it was a tax break, but did you think about the other, $60,000 you could use with what you could
right? Where is there actually a return on investment here?
Yes,
it grows your business. Yep.
Yeah. So I want to switch gears a little bit from AI to another thing that I'm really excited about that you're involved with, which is recruiting people into your organization. So Focus CFO is unique, in my opinion, in the fractional space. You have both a franchise organization, which you're a franchisee as their president, and then you have licensees, which are the main source of your workforce, the fractional CFOs themselves. And the two are married together, which is not common. It's an interesting mix, and it's something that we are very excited about modeling as well within our organization. And as we are going through that journey of discovery of how we make that work, I'm curious how you've made it work for your organization, and then maybe step back a few years when you were the CMO, how you messaged that difference and attracted the right people and put them in the right paths.
I think those things, it's going to just be all melded together, right, in that answer. And so, there's a fundamental premise that starts the conversation, and that is, and it's a generalization, but one that everybody nods their head at, that in general, if you're a fractional CFO, let's say you're a sole practitioner in fractional CFO, you have to spend, a good amount of time in doing business development, finding clients. And then you go off and you do start doing some work, and then maybe you put business development aside for months or whatever until that client leaves, and you got to go back to again. It's a very inefficient use of time. And the generalization is that most CFOs are not wired for business development. It is not their happy place. They're not the extroverts. Of course, there's exceptions to that, but we saw that as a challenge as we were trying to scale our business. Right, because there was that dynamic tension. And so separating out those roles and having professional business developers, right? My role as the area president, and separating it out from the CFOs who really are just want to do great work for however many clients they want to work for and work with over that period of time has really one of the two things that really kind of propelled what really has become a hockey stick growth curve for us. Is part of that. So that's actually one thing. So think about it from this perspective. When we think about recruiting CFOs, our target market is very experienced CFOs. And that's one of our three differentiators. If you kind of go from the EOS perspective, right, what are your three uniques? The three things that make you unique in the marketplace. One is that when we're 200 something CFOs right now in our organization, all of them are highly experienced. They have been CFOs for decades, right? As part of all that piece of it. It's really important to us. So as a general nature, they're certainly kind of more of my vintage than anything else. And for them, that value proposition of, hey, I get to tell you how many days a week I want to work. I want to engage with clients and do my other activities the other days. You give me good clients that I can actually add a lot of value to, because my role is to do some heavy discovery and vetting of potential clients along the way. And they get the nature, and then they get the benefit of being part of a large organization. So look at that team culture and the collaboration, which is a really big part of our culture, is a big win for them. But they don't have to do the business development, which is typically not their happy spot. And so for our CFOs to join us, who are the licensees, it's essentially it's a lifestyle decision to come join us. How many days they want a week, how many days they want to work with clients, and they're adding value to those clients. The area president role, as a contrast, right, is much more of an entrepreneurial type role, and it is it's meant for people who are very extroverted, along the way, and are just wired for wanting to go out and build that book of business, and be successful at that. And that really, it's just two different personality styles, two different sets of motivators. And so where the CFO, that licensing agreement for the CFO works for them, because it's basically, it covers the scope of what they're going to be doing with us. The area presidents are actually building their own books of business, and something that has residual and transferable value. That required more complexity than the simple licensing agreement that we refer to also. And that's why, the franchise agreement model was the closest thing that makes sense. We don't operate like a traditional franchise at all. And I want to be very clear about that. It's not like everyone's buying a couple of zip codes and we're all working independently. We're one big collaborative organization. I have two other area presidents here in Charlotte with me. They're all franchisees technically, but we're just part of one team. And we all work together. We have a big pool of CFOs that we all share, and we have to coordinate between that. So it's not independent businesses.
Yeah, that's fascinating to me. And it's great, because that's how we are. We're one big group as well of CMOs, smaller group of CMOs, but
Sure.
But we operate very collaboratively. It's important to have that culture. So you've got a very easy split. Like, do you want to be in biz dev and build a business and sell CFO services and place licensees? That's the franchise path. Or do you want to have a lifestyle fractional CFO business where you can pick and choose your clients and who you work for and how long you work? And that's a licensing model. That's pretty straightforward. Do you see people that have interest maybe in one starting as a licensee and then evolving into a fractional or a franchise? Or do you always see it's pretty black and white? They just go down one path and stay.
Great question. There's the area president role. There's three, let's say, prototype profiles that are most successful in that. One is an ex-business owner, right, who's very accustomed to talking to other business owners and sharing their own pain and suffering and their journey. And that's me. That's my example. Two are folks who have been professional advisors to that roughly lower middle market business. So, for example, we have some area presidents that are ex-commercial bankers, very successful doing what they're doing. And you can see the connection there, and it's relevant. But the third one, may be surprised, is CFOs that have come over to the, I like to refer to it as the dark side. And there are a few that are actually wired to be extroverts, and the ones that are extremely successful. Probably our leading area president from a book of business perspective is an ex-CFO.
And once that ex-CFO moves over to from the dark side to the light side, or vice versa, whichever one you could figure.
Exactly.
Do they still do the work, or no? They separate themselves from the work and they parse it out.
there's sometimes if they move over from the CFO side, there's maybe some residual client work
Yeah.
that they're still doing. Or maybe they're in a new market where we haven't yet recruited up a CFO team underneath them. And so they may take on one or two client engagements. But to be a successful area president, it's a full-time plus type focus. And so no, over the long term, you're better off handing out the actual data week to week client service delivery to the CFOs.
That makes sense. So tell me how you handle the dilemma that might occur if you have a licensed CFO that brings in their own piece of business. Do they operate independent of Focus CFO and just do that on their own, or do they bring that into the fold and share it, or how does that work? Because I know there's some interesting gray area as far as what you can ask.
Sure, we're really getting into the inside baseball here. So it is common or not uncommon that a CFO who joins us originally started out trying out the sole practitioner role themselves. Right. And so they may have picked up a couple clients and maybe they have one or two residuals. And this is actually a common scenario, but realize, that whole business development thing, it's just not me and I'm not really good at it. For those that have that existing one or two clients, we allow them to carve it out. So if that's what they want to do. So if they want to carve it out and continue to work with them, then the number of days that are available for us is a little bit less until those clients eventually work out. Or they have the option to roll it underneath the Focus CFO umbrella and they can continue to work it, or maybe transition into another CFO if that's a better fit for that scenario. So we're pretty flexible with that. Yeah. But once they start with us, all work that they do as a fractional CFO is underneath the Focus CFO umbrella.
Okay. That's good to know. That makes it more appealing for the franchisees to work with the licensees if they know they're going to stay, not going to leave and do their own thing.
Oh, 100%. And one of the criteria, and if I'm meeting with a potential CFO candidate who is interested in joining us, one of the things I want to know is because they're typically, again, more of my vintage, I want to know what their time frame is, right? And in more or less in unwritten terms, I'd like to see a minimum of 5-year, it's not a written commitment, but a verbal commitment, because that's typically our average engagement length with clients is around 5 to 6 years.
Oh, is it that long?
On average.
Placement. Okay.
And so it's very disruptive to the relationship if the CFO's been there for a year or whatever, develop trust related, and decides to go retire or do whatever, and I have to replace them. You want to avoid that disruption at all cost.
So what was your hardest job as a CMO when you were doing that work? Was it helping support the recruiting efforts or helping support the client engagement prospecting?
Yes. So quite literally, when I kind of accepted the role of being the fractional CMO for the firm, our marketing, and this is no secret, right? Our marketing platform was minimal to non-existent. And it was not a very well-developed messaging strategy. So when I came in, the strategy from the top down was, we have 3 audiences, right? That we need to speak to intentionally, right? All 3 of those audiences. One is obviously business owners who potentially may be interested in retaining us for fractional CFO services. It's the CFOs who are looking to potentially join our firm versus whatever. And our network, our centers of influence, our referral partners, our networks, and all that. All of them need to understand us better. They'll come to our website at least for validation, and maybe even upfront, just who are these guys and learning about it, kind of thing. So we needed to talk deliberately to all 3 of those audiences, and that was my marching orders and challenge right from the very beginning. We completely redid our website, our marketing materials, the brand messaging, everything around that we were talking clearly and succinctly, but intently to all three of those audiences.
So I don't know if the current website is your baby, but one of my CMOs, who I respect greatly, she's big on messaging and branding, is in love with your recruiting website. How you built that journey so that a new prospective licensee or franchisee comes in, kind of self-selects and determines which path to go down. She says to me, Joe, we've got to do that with our story because it is not that good. I thought, oh, thanks, Jamie. Well, I appreciate that. We're marketers. We're supposed to be better than financial people when it comes to messaging, but well, we got some work to do.
Well, given that she loves it, then yes, I'll take a little credit for that.
Yes.
Obviously, there was a number of people involved in developing the messaging and all that aspect of it. So, but yes, none of that stuff existed before I kind of took the role and kind of revamped that all.
Yeah. Well, you did a nice job. I think the similarities in our business are so clear as a fractional CMO and a CFO, but it's also different in one way. I like to learn from it. It's you being fractional CFOs have been around a lot longer, and you're a much more known quantity in the SMB space. And what you do is probably a little bit more scripted than marketing, but there's also some nuances in what a CFO should do and shouldn't do. Has it always been that way, or did it just take time for the market to understanding more clearly know what a fractional CFO does?
I would argue that the market, again, lower middle market private businesses, has maybe a little bit of a clue, more of a clue now than they did years past about A, what fractional execs are all about, and B, what a CFO actually does for their business. But I'd say that's just still incremental. A big part of my role and all the other area presidents, my colleagues, a big part of it is education. Educating most owners, to generalize, hear CFO and think accounting.
Yes.
Because all they know is, they have to have a bookkeeper, somebody doing the books, right? That's part of it. Maybe they have an accounting manager or controller of the little part of the business, and they have their outside CPA that essentially prepares their taxes. That's the extent of their finance knowledge, right? And so they think about it. And accounting and what a CFO does are very different. Accounting you've heard me say this, is a backward-looking function. It's extremely critical, and you have to get it right and accurate and timely, but it describes what happened in the past, last week, last month, last quarter, last year, whatever. And while that's really important foundation for which a CFO needs to be able to do their work, they're really a forward-looking, strategic, planning type of role. And they're like, all right, where are we going now? What is the health of the business? Let's first agree on what the metrics are that really measure the health of this business. And then let's take the business strategy, right, where we want to go with the business, the goals or whatever, whether it's growth or whatever, marry it to the numbers, right, and build that financial roadmap that will help get there, which includes how do we invest our dollars? Well, if we need to raise more capital, how are we going to do that? How do we articulate our story out to a banker or an external investor or eventually a potential buyer? So they're really taking that function of marrying the numbers to the strategy and building a full narrative, both numerically, but also verbally, right? Anecdotally about where this business is going. So a lot of times they're one of the chief evangelists for the business.
Yeah. All right. So there still is a lot of education in your sales process, just like ours. I just assumed it was a little easier for you guys than for us. Maybe not. Maybe it's still the same.
And I'm sure you're experiencing this as well. The more recent educational challenge is that it's great that this whole notion of fractional executives has exploded. That industry is I think that's fantastic. I've often said, I think even said it to you in our last call, I wish I knew about fractional CFOs when I had my prior business years ago.
Right.
I was acting as a CFO, but I would have fired myself in an instant if I could get a CFO in one day a week, right, into my business. So, but there's also, because it's an explosion and there's no standards, there's no quality control group. Anybody can slap the fractional CMO or fractional CFO label on themselves, and who's never actually acted in that role, right? On the marketing side, maybe they were an SEO person or, whatever. You get the gist. For
We
us,
see a lot of that.
yes, and for us, it could be somebody who's been a controller at a business for 15 years, and now, which is an accounting role we just talked about, and now says I'm a fractional CFO, or somebody comes out of a CPA firm and now says I'm a CFO, even though they've never been a CFO in a business, right? And dealing with all of that.
Yeah, well, very similar situation with marketing as all fractionals. It's a lot more supply. Demand continues to grow, but not at the same pace that the supply has come in recently, and so it does put some pressure, and it allows for, I think, the higher performing fractionals, the area presidents, and in our world, the firms that are more inclined to going out and getting the business to shine above people that are less inclined, because you have to fight and win that business more so than ever. It used to be you could differentiate yourself by just using the word fractional. That's no longer the case.
Yeah, no, it's not, and that ties back into your prior question about kind of my role as the fractional CMO. A big part of that was clearly articulating our value proposition, our messaging. What makes, not just that we're fractional CFOs, but what makes Focus CFO and how we do things unique, right? And different, and differentiates between the noise that's out there right now. And we spend a lot of time on that. And it's very effective now.
So as an area president, what would you say the three things that you do, the habits or the tactics or the approaches that you engage in, provide the most value for your licensees to get new business? For our CMOs, we tell them, spend time talking to other referral partners and other fractionals. Try to get yourself in front of audiences to speak, and then produce thought leadership content that can spread and be shared easily. Those are some of the three that come to mind off the top of my head. What would you say the things are that you do that are most effective?
Number one is easy, and it's clear. It is building your network of centers of influence. Hopefully some of them develop into strong referral partners, subject matter experts, maybe not referral partners, but people that you would bring into it. Because, depending on who you talk to, 80, 90, 95% of your business comes from referrals, right? Where there's a warm transfer of trust, right, to that audience, which means, and with AI and marketing and all the stuff that I did as a CMO, at the end of the day, that's still the lion's share of what we do, which is why it was important for our website to speak to those audiences when they were coming in and validating who we are. So that's a big part of what the area president does. So we actually put all of our area presidents through sales training, right? And we for years we've been using Sandler sales training, and it's been a phenomenal process. We've tailored it for our needs, but building the behaviors and the best practices so that you're doing that on a continuous basis is the big key to success. The other part of that is then also being able to effectively, when you do get referred into an owner, is to go in and be able to empathize, understand their business, right? Understand their pain points, have that discovery type conversation where you're kind of peeling away at the onions, the layers of the onion, to really get to know their business and determining whether or not we're a good fit for each other. I think every business, lower middle market business, needs a CFO, full-time or fractional, most likely fractional because of their size. But we're not, our model is not the only one that's a fit. So we want to make sure that we're a fit with those owners. And that's part we do. And then the last part of my job, well, not my last part, is making sure matching what I learned about that company, matching the right CFO in with that client, right? And I assume I don't know about you on the marketing side, it is not, the first criteria is not industry experience by far at all, because our CFOs are typically going to be embedded onto the leadership team. It's just like, the owner, their COO, or whatever their roles are in those particular places. And that CFO has to be a functioning, trusted part of that team. And so what really makes, the biggest criteria is personality and culture fit. That they're gonna start off by saying, yes, we kind of like this person, and the CFO kind of likes them, and then trust develops over time as they're doing their work and they're educating them. That's the biggest piece of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I would agree with you. The most important thing is personality and culture fit, 100%. We do get a lot of requests, and there's a good conversation we have around industry expertise. There seems to be value to the prospect in having somebody that has industry expertise come into their organization and have the theory is, or I think the thought process is, they'll understand our industry, they'll have experience in it, they'll have success much more quickly than someone else having to learn my industry. And although there's some truth to that, almost every CMO will tell you, I'm industry agnostic. I can work in any industry, quickly come up to speed. The fundamentals of marketing don't change necessarily. Industry to industry tactics change. But there is that presence. There's probably, I'd say, 20% of our clients that are really particular about getting an industry fit, but then the 80% really don't care. They just want somebody that they feel could be a good add to their leadership team and has had results in the past.
They are. And this is a conversation, as you would imagine, I have often with prospective clients. And, my talk track is I'm very proactive right up front. And I tell them, even before they ask, what my criteria is for matching a CFO with them. And when I say it's, primarily personality culture fit, they all go, yeah, that makes sense. Right. So I take it out of that. And that, quite frankly, 80 to 90% of what they need from a CFO, any of our CFOs can do, because they're all highly experienced. But that last hit and the last twist of this, and we already mentioned the three uniques, what I think makes us different, right? We talked about experienced CFOs. We talked about our embedded model. We're embedded leadership team. The last one is a benefit of our scale. And you all embody that too. We play it as a team sport. So all of our 200 plus CFOs, they all collaborate, they knowledge share, best practice share. And so if something comes up, whether it's industry related, technically related, tax related issue, or even, hey, my client needs more warehouse space. Does anyone know something? They're always bouncing back and forth with each other and sharing it. And so, and I tell this, it's very honest with our prospective clients, is you're not just getting that CFO, right? You're getting that CFO plus all this collective wisdom and experience from the rest of the team that comes out of that. And I have some, I've given them some very specific examples. One of my favorites is I was speaking with the owner of he's a physical therapist. They had multiple locations and he was looking for a CFO. And of course, he had the mindset that it needed to be somebody that was out of the healthcare space. And I told him that I identified the CFO who I think is going to be the really good fit for him. He let him tell me about him. Well, he comes out of the retail petroleum industry. And he looked at me like I had a third eye. And I'm like, no, listen, trust me on this one. He's a great CFO, a lot of experience. All of his prior clients have loved him. But I go, here's the benefit of our model scale. I've already connected him with a colleague of mine. This one happened to be in Nashville, who came out of 8 years in private equity, rolling up occupational and physical therapy practices. They've already communicated, they've already shared. He probably knows more about your industry now than you do, at least from, what drives it from a value perspective and a financial perspective.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, I'll give it a shot. 4 weeks later, he calls me up. He's like, I freaking love Rich. He's the best. And that's where you kind of say, all right, this is working. This model works.
That's great. How many clients do you have as area president, or not necessarily you, but on average, like what's the number of clients, engagements that you're servicing as an organization, as a area president? You've got multiple CFOs certainly, but what's that number look like?
So I'm a little bit more of a veteran CFO. I'm an area president now. I've been doing this for 5 years. And so that number is different versus someone who joined us a year ago, right? He's in the process of building up their book of business. So I have 20 something clients right now. And I think, that I said that leading area president who was an ex CFO who was switched over, he's probably up around 30, right? But he's been at the firm several years more than I have, right? And
Yeah.
doing it. So that's about it. Where it just starts, you start getting you're thrashing too much if you get much above that. That
And,
piece of
and, and I think I know the answer to this, but is most of your business geographically driven from your network, or is it all across the country, virtual?
Yes. I'd say, to be clear, about 80% roughly of our client engagements, the CFO is on site every week or most days of the month.
Oh, really? I didn't realize it was that much. Okay.
Because remember, we're embedded on the leadership team. And if that leadership team is all together in the same facility or same location or same office, whatever, CFOs will be much more productive and effective as being part of that leadership team if they're there with them.
Yeah.
Now, I have some clients, as I said before, I'm based in Charlotte. I have some clients, they don't have a physical office anymore. During COVID, they just got rid of it, right? So our CFOs are remote. My referral network can take me anywhere. For some reason, my network, I have like 3 clients in Arizona. I wanted 2 in New Mexico. So you never know. So those are more remote engagements. So roughly about 20% of my clients are remote or mostly remote.
And how much interaction do you have with your clients once you place a CFO?
It's a great question. So in our model, what we consider best practice is um, once we engage and the CFO starts, the CFO is going to take about a month or so to kind of get their arms around and start to learn the organization. And then I'm going to sit down with the owner and the CFO. We're going to go through the initial kind of, let's talk about priorities. And we kind of work on a 90-day sprint model. No surprise. We've kind of borrowed that whole structure from EOS.
Sure. Yeah.
It's very effective. And so I'll be involved in that from the beginning, because especially I have the existing relationship. Over time, the CFO gets more embedded in there. That need for me to be there coordinated becomes less. So I touch base with my clients, twice a year, sometimes 3 times a year. It really varies. I have some clients where they're something's going on, right? They're engaged. Maybe they get approached by a potential buyer, or et cetera. And then I get a lot more involved with them, because that's a little bit of my background as well. And so we'll be much more touched. So it really depends.
And then how often are you interacting with the actual CFOs on each of the client works?
They are updating me weekly for the most part on what's going on with the clients. And I don't have to sit down and have a long conversation with them. But, again, it's kind of, it's EOS thing. If I see what their quarterly goals are, their rocks, if they're they're just sending me a list of, the to-dos and the issues that they're working on and a little bit of color commentary, I have a really strong idea of what's going on in that client week after week.
Yeah, that's a good setup. You guys have done a really nice job. I'm really proud of our partnership, because we get a chance to now learn from someone who's done it before and kind of pioneered this model. I asked you a bunch of questions. What questions do you have for me? I'll open up my kimono too if you got any nagging issues you want to get into.
So I'm curious how, I talked about what makes us unique, and how we like to present ourselves as being unique, compared to other fractional CFOs that are out there, or people claim they're fractional CFOs, but they're not. I'm going to flip that around. How do you present yourself? What is your message about? What's the unique proposition about your CMO?
Yeah, our biggest uniques are, when we're working with clients, it's having a proven process and an expert to execute it. So the fractional expertise is pretty common expectation, I guess, when you go to a fractional firm. I would argue, we have a little bit higher level CMOs than most of our competitors, but it's really the proven process, and that process that we've built over the last 8 years and continue to improve upon. That's fundamentally based around the 6 fundamentals of marketing. It is solid, and it's not just from a marketing standpoint a really smart way to build a marketing strategy, but from an operational standpoint, a really smart way to deliver fractional marketing leadership. Because it's flexible enough that every CMO can bring their expertise, of course, but also their personalities and nuances. But it's rigid enough that we make sure the client's experience is going to be similar from CMO to CMO to CMO. We have a very EOS-like cadence. So we have our weekly check-ins, we have our quarterly meetings, but we also have marketing coordinators that are part of our process that support each of the clients, each of the CMOs all along the way. So now it's not just a CMO that's in there helping, it's a coordinator that's there also. The coordinators are doing more of the project management, administrative, light tactical work. It's not an agency model at all, but the CMOs then stay more strategic. They've got a person that, on their team that's handling a lot of the more administrative tactical work that they don't have to do. So that means the client gets both. They get a CMO, they get a coordinator, they get a proven process, and we've been doing this for 8 years, and it keeps getting better and better and better. I think how we differentiate for our potential CMOs is we have a franchise model that is unique in our industry. What that means is it's people are building something that can be transferable. Our firms are trying to build $1 million firms that can then be sold or handed to their team, something like that. And that's the direction. So the mindset is totally different than your licensee model, which is I just want to do fractional CMO work. So we have that pathway. They can come in as a licensee, they can move into a solo fractional, or they can move into a firm. And we built that into our model. That's a big difference. We have that biz dev that we do for our CMOs. We have a team that's constantly out there building opportunities and building biz dev for the CMOs and for our firm, which is our equivalent of area presidents. We're also helping them do that. I mean, you're doing that for your licensees. We're doing that for both our licensees and our CMOs. None of our fractional competitors do that for their CMOs. And that's just something we did from day one. We thought it was important for us. That's the X factor of the industry, is how do you get more leads and more qualified leads. That's what it all comes down to.
Kudos to you for kind of being that pioneer with that kind of structure with your firm. Because you're right. I mean, I know some other CMOs, both individuals and some small firms. I've never seen a structure like that out there.
It was built, with the intention of being as supportive as we can be, and scalable. And now, as we look at bringing AI in, that is my job as this visionary, is to figure out how AI fits into this organization. And the first question I ask myself every time I have an idea is, how is this going to benefit the firms? How is this going to have them either provide a better service and more value to their clients so they're more retained or have more business? Or how does it help scale them or give them the time back? Or how does it help them recruit or make recurring revenue streams independent of their time? Because that's the most important thing in our organization. And then, okay, now the other aspects of AI can come into play. But if we can't support the firm owner in growing their practice, getting to that $1 million in revenue and getting other streams of mailbox money, then it's not worth us investing in.
That makes sense. Let me twist that question a little bit. I previously talked about some of the educational challenges that we face when we're speaking with business owners, founders, about what we do in our value proposition, et cetera. I have to assume that you have a similar educational challenge, and maybe even more so.
Yeah, we do. And because marketing means something very different to most business owners. And it's usually very tactical in their mindset, or it's sales support or prospecting or lead gen. It's rarely strategic. Like when we tell people that, no, we want to sit in your leadership team meeting as a fractional CMO to help you work on all of your business decisions, not just how to spend your $10,000 a month on AdWords. They're like deer in headlights. That doesn't make any sense. You're my vendor. And that's how they think of us. So we have that baggage that we carry when we come in. Most of my clients, our clients, I say have marketing PTSD. They've all had an experience with an agency or a new hire that just oversold and underdelivered. And that's the expectation of everybody since then. So we have to overcome that and a fear early on. And then we need to start to educate on what marketing really is from a strategic standpoint. And that's our 6 fundamentals. We have to teach our clients, really smart business owners that are actually really great marketers because they know the customer better than anybody else. They know the competition better than anybody else.
Yep.
Know their product and service better than anybody else. And they figured out how to grow their business because of that. They are marketers. And that can be a challenge because sometimes they're know-it-all marketers. They don't want to bring in someone else, but they still don't understand. It's like the conscious competency model where they're competent. They're not really conscious of why. And when we come in there and say, this is why you're successful and this is what's going to get you to the next level, you got to know where you're going. You got to understand your buyer. You got to position yourself. You've got to have a sales and marketing and operational alignment. You have a cadence for planning accountability. And then you have an investment in tactics with an ROI approach. Like those are the 6 fundamentals. And that's why people are successful when they do that. And each one of those 6 fundamentals we break out, and that's our entire audit process, our market execution process. Everything follows those fundamentals. And when we educate them on it, and then we start delivering on it, and they can see it in their scorecard, they see it in their quarterlies, they see it in the result, then they start building a true fundamentals-based marketing department and start seeing the successful growth from it.
That was a mouthful. That makes sense.
Yeah, it's always a mouthful, right? When you get a couple of salespeople on a call.
Especially folks with a marketing background, because we want to make sure we get all of our, our taglines and all our messaging trends thrown into that mix.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, our clients want outcomes. They need the results. They need them fast. The fraction model is great for that. It's it's an expectation. You deliver quickly. You come up to speed fast. And our model is month to month, so we're not delivering, we're not staying, and we know that, and that puts even more positive pressure on all parties to perform and make sure there's a fit. And if that fit's there, you can overcome a lot of learnings along the way. If that fit's not there, the first time you have a hiccup, like, all right, we're done with you, and that's happened enough times to know that it's not preferred for anybody when that happens. So we do also look for fit up front quite a bit.
Good, because we have similar approaches there. We're also essentially a month-to-month relationship that happens to last on average close to 6 years.
Yeah.
So we're clearly doing something right occasionally.
Yeah, we have some 5, 6+ years clients as well. We've got
That's awesome.
We target 2 years. We think that's a good focus, and then but we got plenty of 3, 4, 5+ year clients that have been around for a long time and just appreciate the ongoing service.
Yeah, that's right. That's a fantastic model.
Well, we've eaten up a lot of time, Michael. So I want to just say thank you for being on the show and for talking through your model and what you're doing. I'm really impressed and glad we're in a good partnership with Focus CFO and your team. Thank you for being here.
Likewise, I've enjoyed interacting with a number of your CFOs, across the various places, and I appreciate you inviting me on to have this conversation. Right? These are always fun.
Yeah, they're fun. I mean, I always make sure I get people on that I want to talk to and ask them questions I want to talk about. And it usually goes pretty quick and fast for everyone. So thank you.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
And hopefully our audience appreciates it. So thank you, audience, for listening and watching. And my producers always remind me to tell you to push that subscribe button or download or whatever it does to get his points and value on the internet webs. So do that. And join us next time we have a episode. Thanks for being here. And thanks again, Michael.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
And that's a wrap. There's another successful episode of the Fractional C-suite Retreat. See our show notes and more episodes at fractionalcsuiteretreat.com. This podcast is sponsored by your CMO, helping organizations grow, save time and money with better marketing strategy and fractional execution. Visit them at yorcmo.com, yourcmo.com. Spelled wrong on purpose.